In this next example, we're going to parse URLs from a web page. So before I basically write any logic or anything like that, I basically build a regular expression from the ground up, and I usually use an online tool. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. And this is pyregx, so we can just build the regular expression online. So this is very handy because we can just put in our test string right here. And what's good is this will run as we type it in. So we're going to break this out into components first. So let's use the starting point, which is our caret. So we're going to make a group. And so a URL can either start with HTTP, or separate these by a vertical bar, so HTTPS, or it could even start with FTP. And then, so after that, we're going to have a colon and 2 forward slashes. So as we can see, this is running as we created, so we've already matched this whole group for the first set of characters. And for the rest of the URL, we're going to go ahead and create another group. And let's create a character set inside that. So we'll take A to Z capitalized, A to Z lowercase, 0 through 9. And then there's some other characters that we have to take. We can take a period, obviously a forward slash. We can go with a hyphen. This is not going to be an exhaustive list, but it's going to be enough for this example. Let's go with equals, ampersand. And we'll also take the question mark in case there's a query string. And we need to take more than one character, so we need to add the plus to the whole thing. Okay, so now that we've built this out, as you can see, we have, so in our first group here, we have HTTP or HTTPS or FTP. So there's a little bit of redundancy here, so we can go ahead and combine these. So I'm going to do that. And so it can be either HTTP or HTTPS. So the S is basically the character that is optional. So we're going to add a question mark immediately after that. And once we do that, we got to right back to where we were if we were to have the 3 different options for the scheme. Now, the next thing you notice is that we have is we basically have this broken out into groups. And then if we had a large block of text, it's kind of nice that we can use the Python find all method, which is actually what we're going to be doing. So if we were to run this as is, we would basically get in separate groups, we would get the scheme and then the rest of the URL. Now, if the scheme is something that we wanted, that would be a good thing. However, we want the entire URL. So what we need to do is change this to using non-capturing groups. And we can do that by just adding at the very beginning of our group, we can add the question mark colon. And then we would have to do the same thing over here. And as you can see that we run find all with these changes, we basically get an entire match instead of it capturing the groups. So it really just depends on your use case. So this is, I want to make something clear, the fact that this is a very simple example. URLs are actually much more complicated than this. And then if I go to this page right here, this is basically a list of different URLs along with different regular expressions that other people have written. And these are actually test cases that have tested against all of those. So we would have to do this properly, it would be much longer, much more sophisticated. We would have to factor in that some of these can be IP addresses, an IP address with a port, Unicode characters, query string parameters, and so on. I mean, there's just a lot to it. And then here's the examples of what those regular expressions being tested are. And some of these like over 1,000 characters. I mean, it's just pretty, the complexity is pretty insane. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to use a very simple approach. Okay, so now that we have created our regular expression, we built it from using the bottom up method. We just build in components using an online generator. Let's go back to the editor. And I'm just going to, since this is going to just be a constant value, I'm going to call this really simple URL pattern. Okay, so what we're going to do is download the contents of a web page. So I'm going to create a new variable called URL, and I'm going to just paste a URL for the Python RE library. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to import requests, which is another library to make to download basically a web page. And then, so let's create a new variable called response. And we're going to use our request library. And we'll use the get function. And so the first thing that we need to do is, so we need to pass in our URL. And so the response will just get the text. So text equals response. And we'll just use the text function of we will basically get a response object back. And we'll just go ahead and print this out. So what that would give us is HTML content. And then we'll go through and grab our hyperlinks. So we want we want to use the find all method. And let's pass in our pattern followed by the text. And we'll do a for loop to print them out. Okay, so we go ahead and save this file. Let's go ahead and hide this and run it. Actually, I made a mistake over here. This is not a method, it is just a property. So let's go back and try this again. Okay, so we have the contents of the web page, the source code just all printed out for this URL. However, we did not find any of the links. Okay, so what I'm going to try doing is removing this character right here, because the character before that is going to be probably like a quotes for like a opening anchor tag, then href, and then a quote character followed by the URL. So it might not start with that, but what we want to capture is not part of that. So let's go ahead and try and rerun this. Okay, so now we are getting all of those links. We'll go ahead and do one more example. We will just pull out all the anchor tags. So with that, let's go back to our online editor. And so pyregex is very good. I use it a lot. But however, it doesn't seem to play very nice with HTML. So another one that I commonly use is called pythex. And with that, we can test multiple strings. So that's one very big positive with this. So let's just create a couple of test cases. And we'll go ahead and just create one more, except this one will be an internal link. Okay, so just like before, as we type our regular expression in, it'll just continuously run every time we make a change, and then we'll know right away if it passes or not without having to run a complete script. So obviously we're going to be starting with an opening A tag, and this is going to be another very simplified example. I'm going to go ahead and create a group, and let's go ahead and just match everything. So we're going to hit dot plus and our closing tag. And we wanted to make this a non-cat. So the way that this works is, so this is capturing groups. So we're basically capturing everything inside. So let's make it a non-capturing group. And so basically we've captured the entire thing. So let's go ahead and copy this. And so we're just going to make a new pattern up here. We'll just call this anchor tag pattern. And let's just create a new for loop. We'll call this A tags. And we already have the text because we've used it in the previous example. Okay, so if we run this, we should be able to pull all of the links, and which we did. So we have all of the anchor tags. So in this video, we basically use requests, which is a library that can basically download web pages for us. And then we've pulled out the the hyperlinks as well as the anchor tags. And this will conclude the series on regular expressions. Thank you for watching.